Okay. Hi, how are you doing? Everybody having a good time? Fantastic. Look, I'm going to talk about a few things. I'm going to talk about diversity in business and how to make a business case for it, aka why is diversity in your team a no-brainer? And what's the outflow of the presentation? I'm going to give you a quick introduction because it's one of the topics when I think it's very intellectually honest to tell you where I'm coming from, what's my motivation, and what's my agenda. And then I'm going to talk about three arguments of diversity. Number one, talent acquisition and retention. Number two, innovation. And number three, market access. So let's start with the introduction. Two parts to it. One, I'm an out and proud gay man from Slovakia. And roughly 2 years ago, there was an awful thing that happened in my hometown when I was born and grew up. There were multiple people murdered as part of hate crime against the LGBTQ community. And that was kind of a wake-up call for me, and I understood that I cannot be silent. I have to do my best to push the needle on this, and that's why I'm standing on this stage and on a lot of other stages around Europe. So I do have an agenda, and it's pushing the diversity topic. Second, I'm a CEO of LGBTQ company that is managing LGBTQ dating products. We have, for instance, the second biggest lesbian dating application in the world. We have 35 million users, and we are growing. That is relevant because I do have insights into the diversity, and a lot of my examples and arguments are going to be built from the perspective of LGBTQ community, but I'm also going to bring logic for gender diversity, people with disabilities diversity, people of color diversity. Okay, now that we have this out of the way, and you know who I am and what's my agenda, let's get to the meat of the presentation. These are fantastic companies. And they're fantastic because they are the absolute best in their respective categories. What it means that they are doing fantastic job in growing, getting profitability, and getting return to their investors. These are governed by one of the absolute best talented people in their boardrooms and C-levels. If they make a decision, if they do something, it's because it makes business sense. These companies have the perfect score in terms of equality. I worked for one of them, the blue one, and I loved it. The job was difficult, but I loved the approach. Just to demonstrate what it means, they would pay for your gender transition operation. They would get me a paternity leave if I was lucky enough to have a child, which I don't yet, because it's illegal at the country where I live. And number three, for instance, they would address my partner as significant other before I told them that I have a boyfriend, which made me feel very included. And if I ever go back from startup world to the world of the corporations, I'm never working for anybody else than for the companies that are in the perfect score. And that's a perfect bridge to why do I think it's logical. Why are these business giants doing this decision? It's not because they think it's nice. It's because it moves the needle on the business. Number one, which also connects to my personal story, where I'm never going to work at a company that is not inclusive, is talent. I'm going to use the numbers for LGBTQ, and I'm going to pivot to examples with gender. American numbers, but I mean, it's representative for the whole Western world. 8% of workforce right now is LGBTQ. So roughly 1 out of 10 people who you are risking alienating today if you don't have inclusive policies. 21% of the future workforce, this is how many, according to Gallup research, from Gen Z people identifies as LGBTQ. You are risking to alienate in the future if you are not implementing LGBTQ policies. And this is fundamental. For those people who have companies, you know probably, talent is one of the major success criteria for you. I mean, hell, VCs at the initial round sometimes give you money just because you have strong talent. It is fundamental. And if you don't have proper diversity policies, you are risking alienating significant part of the talent pool. And what is worse, or I don't know if it's worse, but it's also bad, you are risking losing the talent that you already have. If you have a diversity scandal, those people who invested into and are using in your company to move the needle on reaching your goals might just leave you. And this is not just statistics, and by the way, there are groups of people that have a larger number of this, right? Like, for instance, the female population is 51%. That's a hell of a talent pool to lose. And just to show you that it's not just a statistic, I have a few stories. Is there anybody in the audience who's a gamer? Gamer, haha. Yeah, I'm also a gamer. There is a company called Blizzard, which you then probably know. They made World of Warcraft. I think they make fantastic games. They are awful in terms of diversity. So what happened is that they had a few scandals with not being very inclusive. I mean, you know, gamers culture, very toxic. Whoever ever played League of Legends knows. And in order to mitigate the scandal, the board decided that they are going to have a tandem of CEOs, male and female one. It's a cool initiative, right? Like, it should help with the inclusion. It would have worked probably, but once the female CEO learned that she's paid less than the male one, she just left. Which, I mean, it's an awful mistake to do, and it had real-life consequences. A lot of their talent left the company. They had huge issues with acquiring new talent, and they had to discontinue a lot of projects. Heroes of the Storm, a game that I loved, was discontinued. Similar case would be Uber. I think it started in London, but then eventually spread around the world. They got a bad karma, you might remember this 3-4 years ago, but they were not protecting their female customers sufficiently. There were these awful stories from London City mainly, or at least I remember the ones from London City. It got so bad that they had to oust their CEO out of his turn, which is, anybody who ever sat on the board knows it's awful in terms of strategy, continuation, brand. It damages the company significantly. So, point number one, for talent retention and talent acquisition, which becomes super competitive game, especially for the elite talent, you cannot afford to lose any segment of the talent pool. Number two, innovation. I'm going to start with the research. Stanford, fantastic school. They didn't take me, still fantastic school. Has a lot of research that they are publishing, right? They have a lot of data on their hands. And what I did is that I looked at two sets of research teams. The gender homogenic ones, so either only males or only females, and the gender heterogenic ones, so mixed team. And they figured out that the gender heterogenic teams would have articles that would be quicker peer-reviewed, they would get more quotations, and they would get published in better journals. AKA, they did better work. They produced better quality of work. And why is this happening? Thanks for the video. And why is this happening? Harvard Business Review gives you the answer. It's because diverse teams give you a larger variety of opinions, which then lead to better decisions. Imagine that you are doing brainstorming, and you are doing brainstorming in a room with 5 male, straight, MBA educated from Ivy League schools, men with families. Brilliant guys, I'm sure, but they will have very similar life experiences, and they will have very similar contributions towards the brainstorming. Wherever, if you go to brainstorming in a room where you have mother of 3, transgender man, bisexual Filipino, and okay, fair enough, straight, white, male, MBA educated from Ivy League school, you will very likely have a larger diversity of ideas because these people had different life experiences and they bring fundamentally different things to the table. And it was also my experience, believe it or not, I was the first LGBTQ team member in a LGBTQ dating app company. Weird, I will tell you the story over a drink one day. And initially, I felt like, okay, I'm part of the community, I got this. No, I didn't. In my head, it was LGBTQ people, straight people, in terms of user needs. What I learned during the years is that it's gay people, straight people, lesbian people. Very different, I think better, but very, very different. And in my head, and there, of course, you have transgender people and a lot of different things. The spectrum is very, very differentiated, and I very quickly realized that I absolutely have to bring people to the table who have those experiences. I got that Filipino designer who's bisexual, and I got a lot of other people to the table, and very quickly we started to make a lot better decisions, and they started to bring a lot interesting insights into the C-level room, into the problem solving, into the product team. And it really helped, because they fostered a debate from a point of view that I would never thought about. And I remember a lot of times on the problem solving when we were building the product, somebody would bring something and I'd be like, wow, I would have never thought about that this way, but it's kind of relevant. And we built a feature out of it and it killed with the customers. So that's number two. If you want to have good diversity, strong product, or whatever, like good solutions, good problem solvings, diversity helps. It's not a silver bullet, but it helps. Number three, market. I'm going to do a little bit of intro. I don't know if you have it similar, but I guess there is a lot of CEOs in the room or a lot of executives in the room. And my mood is dictated by my P&L. If it's bad, I have a bad month. If it's good, I have a good month. It also dictates my bonus. This is the thing that I decide by. It's the success of the company that is tied to my own success. And my ability to achieve those goals is dictated by my access to the market. If somebody would cut Asia from our market, because, I don't know, I made a bad decision, I'm going to lose my job because it's roughly half of our revenue and it would make us fundamentally unprofitable. Access to the market is fundamental, and not being diverse, not being inclusive, threatens this access. Again, LGBTQ examples on the slide. I'm going to use different examples as a voiceover. We are no longer in the world where you can just have a kick-ass product and low price and win the market by it. I mean, it helps, but it's not enough. Nowadays, the purchases are also dictated by the affiliation towards the brand. There is going to be a speech about the Gen Z brands after me. They might tell you something more about that. But from the perspective of LGBTQ people, 71% are less likely to purchase from brands that are non-inclusive, and 81% of allies, so families, friends, whatever else, who support the cause of LGBTQ inclusion, are less likely to purchase from the brands that are not inclusive. This, only the LGBTQ market, is $3.7 trillion. We are rich. That's hell of a market to lose. And as an executive, you might not be able to afford this. And there are different markets. In US, the market of people of color, it's humongous. Female market, it's half of the market. If you alienate this, you're gone. It's a competition disadvantage that you will not be able to pull very likely. And again, there are real-life examples of this. In 2021, Victoria's Secret, which used to be love brand, got targeted or had a scandal with not being inclusive and promoting unhealthy, toxic stereotypes, which I mean, fair enough. And that was one of the worst years they had. It damaged them badly, and I imagine those were some hella bad C-level and board level meetings that Monday. Similar with, do you remember this Pepsi commercial where I think it was Kylie Jenner that passed the Pepsi and it was super distasteful because they were using Black Lives Matters as something that was, using it for marketing purposes, also damaged their brand badly. I mean, it's Pepsi, they survived, but I guess Coca-Cola had a really good year. This is a mistake that you might be recovering from for years. Losing part of the market is not that the market just stays floating there, somebody else is going to get it, and you will have to get it from them. And that's very, very, very costly. So again, to protect your market share, it's very important to be diverse because it takes one whistleblower, if you are treating your LGBTQ female, whatever employees badly, to lose that market share and to lose that brand power that you've been building likely from decades. And those are my 3 reasons for inclusion, since we still want to take 1 or 2 questions. Talent acquisition and talent retention, innovation, and market access. Thank you.
Thank you, Milan. Any questions from the audience? There was a lot of very interesting stats there, and I really want to hear that story, so you're going to have to share that with us later. Any questions from the audience, please? Don't shout, don't shout. We have a microphone for you.
Hey, I was really surprised that actually the LGBTQ people are less disincentivized to buy from the non-inclusive brands as the allies. So what would you think about that?
Yeah, I was actually thinking about putting that on the slide or not, because I was also kind of surprised. And what I attribute it to, it's an American number. And you have the strong Vogue movement and the virtue signaling. So I would guess that LGBTQ people don't really have the agenda. They're just like say whatever they feel like. Whereas allies probably have slightly higher virtue signaling than the LGBTQ people. So my guess, honestly, would be that the allies just are trying to support so strongly that they are going out of their way to sort of virtue signal that, hey, we are here and we are going to support you with voting with our money. Which in US, it's a big thing, right? They do vote with their money. Make sense?
Thank you. Anybody else for a question? Oh.
Hi.
Hi. Now, a lot is talked about diversity and inclusion, but what do you think is needed to change, to make a change in our societies, in cultures?
In order to achieve
in order
this,
to promote it and educate people in all of this. Where do you think it starts from? That's the one question. Where does it start from?
Yeah, thanks for the question. It's a great question. And honestly, I think it's slowly starting. It's already happening. I was checking the data for the diversity index that I showed you at the beginning. And year by year, the average of the companies that they are looking at rises. And the number of the companies that have the perfect score is also rising. So I think the problem is that you have few elite companies that though represent disproportionately large part of the market share because they're usually big companies that cannot risk this. And I think we just need a little bit of time to double down and for this effect to kind of go into smaller companies as well. But I've been giving similar speeches around Europe and I think the knowledge is there. The leaders are trying. It just takes time for this to kind of ripple down effect to take place. That's number one. So I think the process itself is moving forward, obviously country by country. I don't think it's big in Russia, unfortunately, where, by the way, we just recently got banned. That's also very interesting. But the second part of the answer, how to help it, I mean, there are very business-driven arguments in that deck, and there is a way how to calculate the literal business case for this and take it to leaders. So I think it also takes these change agents that can take the initiative and try to move the needle from inside of the collective. Obviously, there are cultures that are more ready for it than the others, but I think there's a lot of companies that would love to do it. It just takes someone to own the initiative and be that change agent within that company. Of course, carefully.
Thank you so much, Milan. Very interesting talk. We wish
Thank
you a
you.
great day and enjoy Reflect.